Hey everybody, so in today's video I'm going to show you how to make one of these 4-inch popper lures. This is what we use for anything like blackfin tuna or bonita. I'm going to walk you through the process on how I 3D print this, all the way through actual my design in the computer, how I print that out, and how we epoxy them together and do all the painting and all that sort of thing. Really simple process. All of the supplies to build this cost less than a couple bucks just to make one of these things. So it's a really cool DIY if you got the materials. But what we're going to do next is I'm going to hop into the CAD software and show you the design. Alright, so I'm in Fusion 360 here. This is the design I've come up with. It is a 4-inch popper. There's 2 halves to it. That way I can print it out on a flat surface and then just sandwich the wire in through here and then glue it all together, and we'll have a nice continuous part. I've cut out a cavity in here so it'll have an air pocket that'll allow the popper to float a little bit more on the surface. We're going to print this out at a probably 75% infill. That way it'll also have flotation all through here as well. But this is the design I've come up with. It has a good dished out section here, so we'll have some good action on the surface. And then we've got a cutout for the eye piece that we're going to stick in there. I'm going to put this through the cutting software, and then next step will be printing this out. Okay, so we have just started the printing of the popper lure now. We got one half printing. It's going to do the other shell at the same time, and I'll come back when we get a lot closer to completion. Alright, so this is pretty much what it looks like right off the printer. We have our 2 shells here. I don't have the best 3D printer, so the quality isn't the greatest, so we're going to have to do some post-processing. This is what it looks like. You can see the cavity in there, and then these 2 just go together like that. Like I said, there are some seams that we're going to have to fill. But we have most of the body here. And so what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you how to use this to make one of these jigs to bend our wire that'll end up going in here. So the first thing I've done, I've actually just drawn a line here. That'll be kind of like our datum point that we're going to measure everything from. Then we're going to use our actual 3D print, and we can measure the distance between our 2 endpoints. So I've done that. It's 3 3/4. So then we can go on here and go to 3 3/4, draw a line, draw a square line, and now we have the 2 endpoints of where our wire is going to have to stick out of. Now we just have to get this 3rd point here. So measuring with our ruler again, we can put this up against here, and we can see this is 1 2 3/8. 1 3/8 from this end piece here. So we can go ahead and measure that on here as well. 1 3/8, and then draw another square line, and there you go. And I'm just going to go ahead and draw a center line, and that'll help out. So now we have kind of where all of our pieces are going to be marked out. We have our end loop needs to be here, our front loop needs to be here, and then this is the line that our midway loop's going to be on. Now we got to get this distance from here to here. Looks like it's going to be right at 1/2 inch. So this is where we need to put our nails. We're going to use these nails, and they're going to stick up similar to this manner. This one's for a different sized plug. And then that'll help us wrap our wire around. And there we go, that is our jig that we're going to use to wrap this wire. This is just a lure wire that already has a pre-built loop on here. The gist of what we're doing is we're going to put this over one of these, wrap a loop around here, and then continue that loop around here, and then that should be in the same layout of our lure here, and we can just lay that wire into here, close the 2 clamshells, and then finish off our lure. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this around here and show y'all what that looks like lined up with the actual lure plug. That's pretty much what we're left with after we get it bent into place. This little wire wrap, and this will fit right inside the lure body like this with a little bit of massaging, and then we can close this clamshell up and glue them together. What it looks like after I've glued the two halves together, I just used epoxy. I put the wire that we were working on in the center of this, and then just epoxy these two halves together. So it's very solid, very strong. And I went ahead and took some of this 120 grit and sanded the outside a little bit. I'm just gonna keep continuing to do that until I work all the way up to this 800 grit. And that'll be a reasonably smooth surface on the outside, and then I'll coat it in epoxy on the outside, just some clear epoxy, and that'll give a nice smooth finish that we can then paint on. So I'll show you that once I have this all smoothed out and epoxied over. Alright, so after a ton of sanding and continuing to spray down with primer, so I was using just a regular automotive primer, I'd spray a light coat, let that dry, and then sand it. And then this is what we're left with. All of the imperfections from the 3D printing are all filled in. We got a nice smooth surface. Starting to really look like a lure now. So now the fun part is we get to actually paint this. So I'm going to be using a combination of several different types of paints. We got like a metallic finish there. Got some blue metallic. And then also this speckled paint that we're going to try. So I'm going to spray that on here. I'm going to try and get that on film on how I do that. But if not, I'll just show you the final product of what that looks like. So this is what we're left with. We got a nice blue top that transitions into a sparkly underside. And this is really going to shine once we put an epoxy coating over it. So I'm going to pop the eyes into it real quick. They're just any other kind of eye that you can get off of another lure, or you can actually order them also. But I'm going to epoxy those eyes on, and then all that's left to do is let the paint dry on this, and then we will flow some epoxy over top of it, and it'll create a nice glossy finish, and then we're pretty much done. This is the final result after the epoxy is all dried on there. You can see I got the eyes popped in there, had the front painted red, we got the hook saw on there, really nice shine to it. I'm going to do a durability test now. We're going to hang about 20 pounds of weight off of it, kind of like this in this configuration, just to see how well these connections hold up. But that's it. So we're just going to do a little bit of destructive testing on this lure just to see how much pound you can hang off the end of it here. I got it secured, and then I'm just going to hang 20 pounds off the bottom here. And there we go, we got 20 pounds hanging off the bottom of this thing. That's just to kind of simulate fighting a fish with 20 pounds of drag on, and that wire's holding pretty well.